All right, we're over at the vise with the pinion and U-joint assembly. So what you do is you just clamp your U-joint center yoke in your vise with some soft jaws. It's the only way you can hold it so that you can undo the center bolt here, okay? Let me put you back on the tripod. We're going to see if we can get this out of here. All right, let's see what happens here. I can't find my 3/8 breaker bar. All right, just slipping in the vise a little bit. Let me tighten her up a bit. Don't want to tighten it any tighter than I have to. Okay, I'm not liking this. That screw or bolt is generally Loctited in, and they may have used red Loctite on this one. So what we're going to do, we're going to warm this up, and emphasis on warm. Okay, we just want to soften the Loctite. We don't want to affect any heat treating whatsoever. I'm going to give it a little bit of time for that heat to get down in there so I don't overdo it. Just going to let that soak in for a while. It's mainly just the center bolt that we want to warm up, but it's got to get through all that steel. Okay, that's about 120 degrees. I don't want to go too much warmer. All right, let's give it a try. Standard right-hand thread. All right, we're just going to let that heat soak in a bit. We don't want to, rush things here. All right, let's try it again. There we go. Okay. Can't really see if that's red or blue, but they definitely put thread locker on there. All right, let's go back to the bench and see if we can get the U-joint assembly out of there. I don't know if you can see that. So there's a spline that the U-joint yoke goes into. So let's just give it a little tap with a brass punch here. See if we can get it to move. Yeah, she's moving. Take a couple more love taps. Alright guys, so I can see what's going on. They got a little Loctite spillover onto the spline here, but yeah, we're making progress. Yeah, just about there. There we go. Okay, there's your U-joint assembly. This is the seal collar. Looks pretty good. It's got just a, that's just a mark. It's not wear. Okay, there's an O-ring here that came off. We'll put a new one on. So that seals to the back of the yoke. Okay. All right. So you want to examine these splines, okay? So when you've got a large engine, sometimes these will actually twist. We've got a couple in the scrap pile that have twisted, you know, almost a full spline. Pretty amazing. So this one here looks great. Okay, I cleaned this off real good, and it's in good shape. So that's just a polish line. There's no wear there. So if you've got a groove in here, you want to replace this, but this one's excellent. All right, we're going to go after this big snap ring for the oil seal. We could actually do this later, but let's just get it over with. We're going to do it now. Okay, I got my safety glasses on, guys, and a big pair of snap ring pliers. Do not try this with the wrong tools. This is a serious snap ring, and if it comes out of there, it's going to do some damage. Okay. Yeah, let me get a little screwdriver because it's going to need a little help. Try that one. All right, there we go. Okay, we'll wait on popping the seal. We're going to press the gear assembly out of the inboard bearing, and then well, you'll see. All right, well, first of all, these bearings feel great, which is usually not the case. Okay. All right, so anyways, here we go. We've got our special fixture. Set that in there, like so. And you gotta have your adapter. There you go. All right, we'll go back inside. Let's see if we can go ahead and get this seal out of here. Try this first. Yeah, that's going to work. Putting some pressure on the bearing, but just being careful here. I mean, we're not going to save the seal, but I don't want to do any damage to the bearing if we don't have to. Okay. Okay. All right, so here is our bearing. All right, clean it off. Okay, so initial look, it looks good. I mean, there is wear. You're going to have wear. I don't see any pitting or scoring. You really got to clean it, though. You know, we'll clean it with some solvent, and then get a closer look under the big magnifying glass just to make sure that it's looking okay. And we'll do the same thing with the inner race, or the cup, I should say. Doesn't look too bad. We'll probably go ahead and change these anyways, although these are in great shape. But you know, when you have the tools to do it, they're easy to change, and you've got it apart. Might as well change it. So these two bearings are the if you have bearing noise or bearing problems, bearing failure, it's generally these bearings, okay? So let's just take a look here. So we've got a crush sleeve between the two bearings, just like you would have on like an automotive differential, okay? And these are opposing, okay, so they're under a preload, but you know, they're very close together, so there's not a lot of leverage here for these bearings to counteract the side forces that are being generated by this gear, and it's under some, you know, quite a bit of force. You've got, I mean, the entire engine power input is going through this gear, okay, and you're changing the direction of torque 90 degrees. So there's thrust this direction, and there's side loading also. So there's a lot of stresses on these bearings. Plus, it's also keeping the U-joint alignment. So there's a lot going on here. So these tend to be the first bearings to fail. Like I say, these look really good, and normally they don't look this good. But I think we'll go ahead and change these anyways. They're standard bearings. You don't have to buy them from Volvo, but you want to get, you know, good quality bearings. We're going to knock these bearing cups out of here, and these aren't bad at all, guys. I would normally just reuse them, but just want to show you how to change them. So we're going to go ahead and change them. Let's get this one out first, and we're using the same fixture we use over in the press. Hold the clamp ring. Chisel, I've rounded the backside off, and I've annealed this so it's a little softer than normal. Alright, so just going down in here and give her a tap. Okay, there's the first one. So for this side, just use a wooden block. There we go. All right, we got everything cleaned up, ready to go to paint. But before I paint this one, I want to put the bearing cups in. That way we don't have to be hammering on this once it's got the brand new shiny paint job. Got our brand new bearings here. Don't like to take them out of the wrap until you're ready to use them. All right, take two. Pick out your correct bearing. Just kind of eyeball it, make sure it's starting straight. I'm going to use the brass punch. Got the specially ground end on there. Alright, we're going to get a little more aggressive here. That brass punch, it absorbs some of the impact and it doesn't get transferred to the bearing race. Okay, we're ringing solid, so we're down. We're just checking it in a few spots just to make sure it's fully seated. Okay, looks good. All right, to the other side. Just making sure that we're seated all the way down. All right, looks good. We're going to finish up our pinion gear assembly before we move on to the next step. So first thing we're going to do, just so we don't forget later, so we've got a crush sleeve here. Now every service manual that relates to gear work is going to tell you got to replace this every time, right? So the purpose of your crush ring is it takes up the space between your two bearings and gives a mechanical resistance and spacing to maintain your preload. Okay, these spring back a little bit, and well, first of all, this is an 1 3/8 inch by, oh, let's see what we got here. 561 1/2, 561, 561, 562. Okay, so that's going to be around just under 9/16, actually right at 9/16. Okay, so let me show you what I do with these. Let me move the camera. Yeah, this is probably going to generate a lot of comments. All we got to do is re-expand this ring slightly so that we can re-establish our crush and our preload. I'll just take the ball peen hammer, piece of bar stock, and I'm just hitting right on the crown of the ring here. Just work my way around. I'm not hitting that hard, just tapping. Okay, let me go measure. Still got a little ways to go. I'm going to try this side, flat side of the hammer. Okay, let me go measure. Okay, so we're pretty good except for on this side right here, so I'm just going to work this area a little bit. Okay. All right, let's see how we did. 565, 563 1/2, 564 1/2, 564 1/2. Okay, good enough. So we just expanded it a little bit. You know, it's never going to be equal all the way around. That should even out once we do our assembly. But the idea is just to expand it just a little bit. Oh, and I did go over with some emery paper just in case there was any nicks from the peening process. So it's nice and smooth, so we don't have any metal flakes that are going to come off. All right, so we're gonna pull this bearing off. There's nothing wrong with this bearing; it's perfectly good. But we're gonna do it just so you guys can see how to do it. So the dilemma is there's no way to get behind the actual bearing race. This only works maybe 30% of the time. is grabbing by the cage. Let's see if we can get a good even grab on here. Most of the time it just ends up destroying the cage, and you're left with the race. This inner race is still on the gear. But we'll try it and see what happens. Just trying to make sure that we got this as even as we can. Gotta have your adapter. Safety glasses are on. It's not looking good. Well, we did it. See how it has this recess? So there's no way you can get a bearing splitter underneath there. Alright, we came back inside. The weather's kind of deteriorating outside there where the press is. So let's do a little forensic analysis here. So here's our bearing. And you can see we just made it here. Our cage is ready to part. Actually, it did part right there. So it was just barely staying together. Usually you don't even get this far. Usually it just blows the cage right off and all the rollers, and you're still stuck with a race that hasn't moved at all. If it moves a little bit, then you can get your bearing splitter underneath. But in most cases it doesn't budge and it just blows the cage off. So then you've got a couple of choices. Now, let me show you. Some funky oil underneath there. So this gear and shaft assembly, look how thin that is. So you know, this is made out of a high quality alloy steel, and it's probably gone through a delicate heat treating process. So I know old school, you just cut them off with the cutting torch, right? You don't want to affect the heat treat on this gear. They're marginal to start with, and you don't want to do anything that's going to affect that heat treat. So cutting off with a torch or plasma cutter, don't even try it. Okay, the other thing you can do, let me grab a race here. You can try to crack the race, and what you do, it takes a lot of patience. You go in with a Dremel tool with a little cutting wheel, and you cut through the race. You know, try not to go all the way through, but you know, cut a nice groove in there, and then you come in with a cold chisel and try to break the race, and then you can pry it off. Okay, so that's one method. And then what I've done, and I'll set this up for you guys, I made my own custom puller that once the bearing's apart, you can clamp this on and get a hold of that upper rim and pull these off. In fact, I'm going to go press this on a scrap gear, and then we'll demonstrate pulling it off. Okay, for simulation purposes, this is what you're going to be left with. Okay, so we made this special tool, and what it does is it grabs by that flange. There we go, right there. I have a video showing how to make this. There's the bearing race. Okay, so we're going to go on with our new bearing. Double check your bearing sizes, because inboard and outboard bearings, the inner bore is the same, the outer is different. So you can actually put the wrong one on there by mistake, okay? And let's just put just a tiny bit in here. Okay, so I got a support block that fits in to protect our gear. We got our bearing and our driver. Hollow, obviously, because it's got to go over that. Then I use a spacer here. $20-ton press, so just to give you an idea how tight of a fit that is. I'm just going to check it one more time, make sure we're all the way down. And we were not. Okay, we're going to do it one more time. Very important to be very clean. You don't want to get any dirt in that bearing. Alright, we're good. Okay, so we're ready to start some assembly here. Just going to put some gear lube on our bearing. And so we don't forget, crush sleeve, bearing box, and now our new outboard bearing.
We'll do the same thing here. A little bit of gear lube on the inside. Okay. A little bit on the rollers.
So that just sits on. Don't forget that crush sleeve. Alright, so now we head out to the press. Okay, now you don't want to go willy-nilly here, because we have to deal with the preload.
Okay, so it's just starting to go.
As soon as we start taking up all the slack, what I'm doing, I'm feeling for the preload. Okay, that feels good right there. Just a little bit of drag. Take the tension off. Okay, these are new bearings. It's supposed to be about a 1 to 2 pound pull if you wrap the string around and pulled on a gauge. And I'd say we're there. That feels really good. Yeah, you don't want to get it over tight. If it's a little loose, you know, we still have to draw it up with the clamping bolt with the U-joint assembly, so you can make up a little bit if it's loose.